Hi, this is James, and I'd like to welcome you to the introduction for the latest Lenormand video series that I'm going to be doing here on my YouTube channel. And so the video series came about as the request, or as a result of a request, I should say, from a viewer. The viewer is Carla. So Carla, if you're watching this video, hello. Carla recently reached out to me through my latest Lenormand video, which was one of my Oracle Outlook videos. And so the Oracle Outlook, if you're not familiar, is my weekly video reading series, and I use different divination systems in that, and one of those is Lenormand. And so in the most recent Lenormand video I did in that series, Carla was watching the video, she sent me a comment, and in the comment she had pointed out that she wanted some guidance on a particular card in relation to the particular context and situation she was looking at. She was familiar with what the card meant, traditionally speaking, and she just wanted some ideas of what it might mean in those particular contexts, and she was having difficulty with that. So I responded by sending her some of my thoughts about what it could suggest, and then Carla also asked me if I would consider doing a series on what the cards meant for me, or like what are my keyword associations for the cards. So having gotten the request, it made me remember that another viewer named Miss L, so Miss L, if you're watching this video, hello. Miss L had sent me some time ago a similar request about, you know, what my particular meanings of the cards were, and if I would make a video or videos covering those. So I'm a big believer in paying attention to patterns when they show up, and so this to me was a pattern. So I gave it some thought. So my thinking was about it is that I would do a video series. It would be of like 6 parts, and each video would cover 6 of the cards. So I figured that would be easy. It would be easy for me to kind of produce, and it would be easy in terms of digesting the material for you as the viewer. So I'm thinking about doing it that way. You know, that's initially, as I'm sitting down here talking it with you right now, that's how it's going to look, but you know, things change and evolve, so we'll just see. But that is actually my intention for it right now. So that's going to be the series. It's going to be about what the cards mean to me, and so some of those meanings, I want to talk about this for a minute. Some of those meanings are going to be what I learned when I first started, you know, book meanings, you know, what I got from reading books, you know, what I got from watching certain people, very experienced Lenormand readers right here on YouTube. Most of them are right here on YouTube. So other people that I followed, you know, in terms of like what the traditional meanings are, because I'm a big believer in honoring the tradition. You know, it's about knowing what the tradition is, knowing what the history is, and then at some point you want to build on that. So some of the card meanings are going to be what is traditionally known to be what the card means, and then some of them are probably going to be quite a departure, and those are going to be the meanings that I have cultivated from my own personal experience with the cards. You know, like drawing cards daily, I'm a big believer in, if you're going to work with the system, you're going to have a relationship with the system, you want to build on that relationship, and the best way to do that is to commit to it and spend time with it. And so one of the ways that I spend time with all my deck systems is that I draw cards, daily cards, you know, and that's probably a common practice that most of us who are readers do, but I do it faithfully, and not only do I do it, but I also record my readings. And I still, to this day, having been a card reader for 18 years, you know, I still record all my readings by hand. I love the journaling process, and being able to go back and review my notes, you know, and seeing, you know, how the meanings of the cards have changed and evolved for me over time. So some of those meanings are going to be just from that experience, just from working with the cards, you know, having them reflect my own personal daily life experiences, things of that nature. And so at this point, I want to just mention some of the things about meanings. So some of the meanings, if you're watching these videos over time, some of the meanings you will resonate with because they make sense to you based on your world and your worldly experiences, your daily interactions with life. So they'll make sense to you on that regard. And then some of them might not, and that's okay. You know, the idea here is, you know, just to share, I'm just sharing my experience, you know, and I'm just sharing what's been helpful and has worked for me. So again, some of those meanings may float your boat, and then others may not, and it's okay. You know, and you may even have meanings of the cards that I may not even discuss, because again, you may have a different context, different experiences, different meanings, and that's great. You know, like I said, it's all about making the tool your own. So at some point, we all embark on this together, and we all learn the same meanings, and at some point, we kind of go along on our own path and discover meanings that are uniquely ours. So I'm just going to be sharing, some that are uniquely mine. So I want to say that. So I think that's all I want to say at this point. So what I did was, this is the other thing I wanted to say. What I did was, and this is kind of segueing to the next part of this video. So when I'm thinking about a project with a particular deck or deck system, I tend to go to the deck for guidance about that. And that was no different in this particular case. So if I'm thinking about doing a project with Lenormand, it would be best for me to consult the Lenormand about it, right? So that's what I did. So in this next segment, you're going to be seeing the line of 5 reading that I did based on this question. And the question was, would it be helpful for me to do this video series on explaining what my particular card meanings are for the Lenormand deck? So that was the question, and that was the context. And so now you're going to see the reading that I did, and I have to say, I'm so excited to share this because of the context and the cards that showed up in the reading. And I want to say, going into it, this is one of the reasons why I love being a card reader, because this stuff you just can't make up. I mean, some of these cards, I couldn't have picked better cards, given the context. So the deck I want to introduce that I used for that particular reading is La Faneuse Lilac Dondorf. And so I'll have in the description box below, if you're interested in it. It's a traditional deck, but it's been kind of revamped in a way. And I've talked about the deck before, but if you like the images that you see and you're interested in knowing more about it, I'll put the information about it in the description box below so you can check out more about it. So again, now we're going to be shifting gears and we're going to be getting to the table, and you're now going to see the cards that made up that line of 5 reading about this particular situation. So stay tuned. And here we are with the 5 cards that are making up the line of 5 that I did in response to the question that I was posing to Lenormand about this project of doing videos sharing my meanings of the cards. So if you're familiar with the way I read a line of 5, then you know I always start with the middle card. So this was the middle card in that reading. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to allow you to experience it the way that I did it at the time that I actually did the reading. So I turn the middle card over first, and the middle card is the heart. So for me, in context with the question, my keywords that I would pick for this card would be passion and enthusiasm. And I also have deemed this card to represent fans. You know, because fans are people who are in love with either you as a person or in love with you for the work that you put out into the world. So I tend to look at this card as fans, and also too because fans are very passionate and very enthusiastic. So those were the 3 keywords when I looked at the card in context with the question that I chose. I chose passion, enthusiasm, and fan. So if I go with the idea about passion and enthusiasm, that could be in relation to my own passion and enthusiasm for Lenormand. It could also be for the passion and enthusiasm of the fans, quote-unquote fans, those people who have taken the time to watch the videos, comment on them, and for Carla and Miss L in particular, because they have been the people who have requested that I make these types of videos, right? So there's that. And then I look here at the inset, and I know some people don't always read the playing cards, but I tend to look at them. In this particular case, the playing card here, the Jack of Hearts, has personal significance to me because when I work with playing cards in and of themselves, this is actually my significator. So in this particular case, the heart card can also represent a person. If we go with the Jack of Hearts being a face card, this is one of those cards that can either represent an event or situation, but it can also represent a person. So I took this to represent me to some degree and my own passion and enthusiasm for Lenormand. So that is how I looked at the heart card. So again, it was about passion, enthusiasm, and fans. And being in the middle of the line, it says here, keep in mind that the video series is central, or, I'm doing it for the fans, but it's about centering on them and what they're enthusiastic about. So there's that. So then what I do is I tend to look at the surrounding cards, because we all know that while you can get a lot of meaning from one Lenormand card, they are best read in combination. So let's take a look at the surrounding cards. So going from left to right, first card is the lady card. So that was significant when I first turned it over. I had a good chuckle with that. And then the next card next to lady and in between heart is, look at that, is the book. And so I really said, wow, this is on point with the question, right? So then the other side of the line, we have Rider. Again, another card that seems to be very appropriate for the context of the question. And then the last card is Cross. And a cross is very interesting in light of the other cards. So now what I usually do when I do a line of 5, I tend to look at the cards that are immediately flanking the center card. So the first card here we have on the left, we have Book. So Book, in this particular case, for me, would represent Lenormand itself, because one of my meanings for book is a deck of cards. So right here we have the context, right here with these two cards. We have the fan, who's very passionate and very enthusiastic about Lenormand, which was the book. But book also can represent things like knowledge. So in this case, it would be me, if we go with the idea that the Jack of Hearts represents me, it would be me sharing my knowledge of Lenormand, right? Me also being very passionate about Lenormand, that I have a love affair going on with the cards, which is true. So it's knowledge. It's also about education. It's about teaching. It's about learning, right? So there's all those aspects that are going into this video series. And then the last thing for book for me would be a project, right? So this is a project that I'm undertaking, but the project is designed, the intention is to help people learn, right? And learn about the deck. But it's about me sharing my own personal experience, my own personal knowledge of the cards, right? So there's that with book, which I think was fantastic, a book showing up, right? And then on the other side, we have Rider. So Rider, for me, my first go-to keywords with Rider are news and messages. So it's about delivering news and messages, right? So there's that. If we go with book, it can represent the deck itself, but it could also represent as a person. It could represent a reader. So if we combine book and Rider as mirroring each other, that would be a reader who is sending out messages, right? And I would be sending out messages through this video series. So there's that. So I thought that was really keen to see, right? So there's that. Now, if we go with lady on the outer end, lady is a significator card, if I can get the word out. Significator card, right? So lady represents a woman. So when I first turned this card over, this for me was representing Carla and Miss L before her, because Miss L also asked me to do a video series of this nature. But Carla was the most recent one, so I tend to look at lady as Carla and Miss L. And isn't it interesting? Lady is facing everything else in the line, right? So this is about what either she is facing or what it is that she's looking forward to, or what could be coming up in the future for her. So that's very significant to see. With book being this close to lady, it would also say too that the woman is looking forward to learning, that the woman is also a reader of Lenormand, and that she wants to expand her knowledge, but that she's actually looking forward to the project. Because I did Facebook Carla, because Carla also reached out to me on Facebook. And so I did send her a message about this, and so she was very excited and very looking forward to it. So that's very clear that the lady is looking forward to learning about Lenormand through this project, this series. So there's that. I mean, I just love how the cards fell in line with this. And these were randomly picked. I mean, if you see my videos, you'll know that I shuffle the cards, I shuffle them face down, I cut the deck and fan the cards. I always do it at random. So just to see these 3 cards here in the line right from the get-go is very interesting. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? This is why I love being a card reader, because when stuff like this happens, you just can't make it up. So there's that. With the first 3 cards. And then if we go over to the other end of the line, here we have cross. Now cross can be a card that can represent difficulty, you know, it could represent burdens. So for me, what I did was I took cross, and if we mirror it, and cross and lady become a pair, then it is a woman is facing difficulty. You know, and that's why Carla initially reached out to me, you know, because she's having a challenge with trying to make meaning of the cards in certain contexts, in certain situations. I'm sure Carla at this point has some idea what the cards mean for her, but when it comes to certain specific questions, she may be facing difficulty with that and so needing help. Now, it's very interesting here. If we put cross back over here on the other end of the line where it was, we have a pair with rider and cross. If we go with the idea that cross can represent difficulty, then rider and cross would form a pair that could suggest difficult messages. You know, it could be the messages being delivered are difficult. If Carla's doing readings for herself, that might be a challenge that she's having, is that the messages that she's getting through the cards are difficult. It could also be a message. The news or message is to keep the faith. I tend to look at cross as also a card about keeping the faith. So there's that. So I just wanted to share this really quickly because as I said in the intro leading into looking at the video, the reading, that I always go to the cards when I'm contemplating doing something with them in a new way. So I always consider the source, go right to the source, and hear right from the source what the source wants to say. So again, this is very interesting. Again, it's about the video project, about my enthusiasm for it, but also doing it for the fans, my quote-unquote fans, you know, the people who are very passionate and enthusiastic about Lenormand, just as much as I am, especially for the women who are looking forward to learning more about my experience, especially when it comes to the messages, or the meanings rather, of the particular cards that I have come up with. Some of them are going to be traditional, some of them are going to be what's been commonly taught, you know, in the form of what's been held down as tradition. Because going with the inset here, the 10 of diamonds for me can represent history. And one of those things could be things that are passed down from generation to generation. So it could be that part, but also too, like, what have I come up with in my own personal work with the cards, you know, that may be breaking with tradition in a way. So there's that as the line. So I will go ahead and close out the reading and end the video here. Again, this is James Himm Mitchell, and I'm looking forward to having you join me through this journey of exploring my own keyword meanings for the Lenormand. So in the next video, we'll be taking a look at the first 6 cards of the deck. So stay tuned.